Welcome to the Phys Ed Summit 2017. All right, ready to rock and roll here. I am Matt Pomeroy. I work with the Phys Edagogy team, and I'm a Phys Ed Summit moderator, which is awesome. I'm so pumped to be here today. Quick little intro. All right, ready to rock and roll. Of course. All right. Welcome to the Phys Ed Summit. Hey, thank you so much for joining us for this global event. We've got over 2,000 people that have signed up and registered and are ready for this day. So awesome stuff. We could not make this day happen without you. We are very humbled by the support of the summit from each and every one of you. By sharing what you learned with one person, you're able to impact hundreds of thousands of students. So thank you so much for being here today to push best practices, effective health and physical education, and professional development forward. All right. Reminder that if for some reason the video feed stops, please check the Tozzle for the new video link. It may take us a few minutes to get it rolling. All right. But we will get it going again. Just thank you for your patience. You never know what'll happen. Hey, we've got some badges again this year. So while you're watching this professional development, you could be earning some badges. Really fun stuff. Lots of different ways to challenge yourself. Depending on how many sessions you watch, depending on some just other fun things like, hey, maybe you got your morning glory badge, and that's for waking up early, having some coffee, and learning on the go. So cheers to that one. And then there's some really cool retro badges, 7 of those. And we've got different themed things like technology, like health, assessment from all past Phys Ed Summits that you can go back and watch, which is really cool. So check those out. It's at physedagogy.com. It's kind of long, /Phys Ed Summit. And then you can click on the Phys Ed Summit badges. All right. And you can download those and get them going. All right. Chatting on the Tozzle is a great way to learn more. These two guys, Gary and Chad, they're going to kind of be back and forth chatting with you as well on that Tozzle, which is cool. And again, hey, share some stuff that you're learning on social media using the Phys Ed Summit hashtag. Hopefully we'll get this thing trending and get a lot of people around the world checking it out. At the end of the presentation, please visit the Flipgrid link on the Tozzle, which is really cool. If you share out how you can use this information with your own classes, that would be awesome. And if you do post on that Flipgrid video, you'll be entered to win one or two subscriptions to the premium version for 1 year. So Flipgrid was nice enough to have that going for us. And then one of the most important things to us after the summit, we will put a feedback survey on the Phys Ed Summit homepage. We hope that you will provide us with some feedback so we can make our next event even better. And in order to receive your professional development certificate, you will need to fill out that quick survey after the summit as well. Whew. HRFK, an intellectual path to physical literacy. All right. Again, I'm hanging out with Gary and Chad. I'm going to send it over to them just to introduce themselves, and let's get the show on the road.
Well, thanks a lot, Matt. My name's Gary Lemke, and looking forward to a great conversation with Chad this morning. We'll give you a little bit of our background here in a minute, but I'm going to just really pull up the slides first. I guess before I do that, say hi, Chad.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Glad to be here.
So I'm in Indianapolis, and Chad is in Pennsylvania. So we're a little bit remote here from each other, but certainly, hopefully, on the same page this morning. So we kind of put out the topic HRFK, and if you Google HRFK, you're not going to find a whole lot of information because I think Chad's the author of it, and so just so privileged that he could be here today. And if you read the description of this presentation, we definitely have an offer for you. And even before we introduce ourselves, we want to kind of say, hey, at least you may be asking, what are you doing here? And I'm going to throw it over to Chad to kind of talk about the thesis of what we're going to talk about today and the invitation that he has for you.
I think we lost Gary there.
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, the sound seems to be a little bit off on Gary's. It was not before, but Chad, he was just throwing it over to you.
Okay, yeah, so I think Gary was talking about the health-related fitness knowledge and some of the things that we've been doing First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Chad Killian. I taught PE Pennsylvania for 5 years, and decided to go to the University of Illinois to learn a little bit about PE, a little bit more, getting into some of the other things going on from a national level. Met Gary about 2 years ago. We found out that we had a lot in common, particularly related to the use of e-learning in PE, and that's really what we want to talk about today. So one of the things we're doing is we've started a research project looking into the use of e-learning in PE, and wanted to sort of extend the invitation to all of you into that study. And so if you want to go to the next slide there, Gary, we can.
I'll jump in here, and I guess I should make sure can you hear me okay?
It does seem a little staticky, which is weird. It wasn't before. So
okay.
Gary, you threw yourself on mute. Just unmute.
Oh, there we go.
Now you're good. Sounded
Nice.
good online. All right.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure how that happened, but maybe when I screen shared that caused that. Anyway, I'll pull up the window again here, and you can hear me okay?
Now we're good.
Okay, good. Good. I was just afraid the screen share was cutting out my microphone. Anyway, basically, as Chad mentioned, we found each other a couple years ago. I started on my e-learning path, working with a couple of phenomenal teachers in Indiana who had the charge from their administration and from directives on the use of e-learning in education. And it's not an obvious fit in physical education, and they were struggling, and I offered some assistance to help with that. So we've been on a long path of working with a couple teachers which have shared their experience with others, and it's kind of grown, and to the point that we really have been able to demonstrate, not only within school districts but at a higher level, that learning is actually occurring, and it's changed in the way students view physical education, their physical health and well-being, and I think really sets them on a different path than they would have if they just had a kinetic curriculum instead of a balanced kinetic academic curriculum. So here's our contact information. There are some links in the toggle there for resources that we'll point out, and also below you'll see this contact information in terms of our email, Twitter handles, and phone numbers in case you want to reach out to us at a later time. And certainly we'd love to continue this conversation and learn more about your particular situation and how we might be able to help advance your e-learning and your health-related fitness knowledge directives there. So with that, kind of to go into a little bit deeper level in terms of what I've been doing. I started out with a couple years ago that basically we want to add academic rigor to the physical education programs, but we have a conundrum in place. There's a paradox. When you add something, you take something away. And one of the things that we've now learned is that there is a way to add something and actually add to more physical activity time in the classroom. And Chad, maybe you can talk, I know you've been talking to a lot of teachers and the use of e-learning, and maybe you can talk about that kind of how they've been able to use academics and physical and kinetic curriculum at the same time.
Yeah, so one of the problems I sort of identified as a teacher, and I taught in Pennsylvania and had my physical education classes once a week, 40 minutes a day, and so it's really difficult. I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. It's really difficult to kind of get the kids as active as we want them to be active, teach the skills we want to teach, and also have time to sort of, infuse the cognitive piece, the lessons, the health-related fitness knowledge, really, of why being healthy matters, why what we're doing matters. And so, like Gary said, there's sort of a paradox. If we add the health-related fitness knowledge into our curriculum, then kids might be sitting around more than we prefer. On the other side, if kids are highly active, they might be missing some of the lessons of why, the hows, and that sort of thing. So the value of e-learning from the teachers that I've spoken with that use various e-learning tools is they're able to provide a highly active environment during the school day, and then outside of school, online through asynchronous off-campus instruction, students are able to get the why, get the health-related physical fitness knowledge. So e-learning really seems to fit with the overall and the underlying philosophy of physical education. It helps teachers provide a highly active environment during class without missing out on the health-related fitness knowledge, the whys of physical activity as well. And that's what I've been hearing from a lot of teachers that I've been talking to.
So one of the premises that we've really found in this, and the results from feedback from students and just measuring what's going on, is that there's as much, and it goes to the title that we have here, is in terms of an intellectual path to physical literacy. And this is not really anything that is new or earth-shattering. To move the body, we must first engage the mind. It's in as much an intellectual journey, it's an emotional journey, it can be a social journey, but basically it's really important to remember that physical education is not just a kinetic journey. It's not just an active journey. It really does involve, like most things, really engaging that gray matter between your ears. And recognizing that and adding the balance is what we want to do here. So a couple of years ago, I started out with some great, awesome teachers who were willing to let us do some experiments and try some new things. And it just kind of took off. So as of now, we have, this is kind of spread, this interactive PE, this academic approach of e-learning and kinetic curriculum to over 100 teachers and tens of thousands of students. Almost 3 million lessons have been delivered in just the last couple of years here. And one of the things we want to do now is add the research rigor, which is what Chad is doing, to basically take what we think we found and to make sure that we understand what the real impact is, to make sure that we have evidence-based backing to what we're doing with e-learning. And I think it's hopefully going to open up a lot of new doors for us. So this is, we're trying, because health-related fitness knowledge is a term that Chad seems to have coined. I've kind of taken it from there and said, since it's kind of new to everyone, how do we kind of, it's kind of long with 4 letters there, how do we create an image of what that is? And so we're going to share a few of them with you, and we'd love your feedback in terms of which one you think hits most as you learn more about health-related fitness knowledge. And the first one is minds in motion. So that's that, engaging the brain to engage the body sort of concept there.
Hey, Gary, do you want to go full screen on your presentation?
Oh, I thought I was in full screen.
I don't think it is. So
okay,
let's go ahead and start it, and I think we'll be able to see those pictures real good.
Okay. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go screen share. I'm going to go entire screen. Uh-oh.
You're good.
Okay. Okay. It was mirroring on my side. So it's going recursive on me here. So I better just go with the application window.
Yeah, go back in the application window, and then let's just make sure you go into like your present mode through your.
Yeah. So does it show up in present mode now?
We can still see your slides on the left. So I think if you just go start presenting.
Well, I did that actually. That's interesting because I am in my screen mode.
Maybe you don't go into full screen like that and present. Maybe you just click on the slides on the left. We can see them then.
Okay, so you can't see the slides at all? So do you see measuring HRFK?
Yep, let's roll with that.
Okay.
Like if you just keep clicking up and down on the left.
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
there we go.
There we go. I'm sorry. It's
rolling through it, everyone.
Yeah, the technology is a great thing when it works. So one of the things that we've been able to do is teachers have been asking, hey, how can we make sure that learning has occurred? I'm being asked to provide artifacts and data. I'm being asked to show that I'm a highly effective teacher. And one of the great things we've been able to do now is do an assessment of each student coming into the class at the beginning of the semester and doing a baseline measurement of their health-related fitness knowledge as they come to the school, come to that course, come to that teacher in that classroom or a gymnasium. And basically then at the end of the semester, when they've gone through the balanced academic and kinetic curriculum, to be able to measure their health-related fitness knowledge at the end of the course. And this slide here shows that, and this was from students from last spring, that when they came to the course, they had health-related fitness knowledge of 57. That's kind of just a number from 0 to 100, but that the 2 sigma, which would basically be 95% of the students, scored in the 36 to 78 range. And then at the end of the course, you'll see that 2 sigma of the students with an average of 86 scored in the 73 to 100. So basically, the lowest 5% of students at the end of the course almost matched the top 5% at the beginning of the course. And obviously, you can see the change in the average itself. And you can see that many of the students achieved 100% mastery of health-related fitness knowledge. So this is the sort of thing that teachers are saying, hey, it's great, but how do we prove it? And now we're having the data to show it. We're finding teachers actually having this data are able to articulate that learning has actually occurred, which is a common issue in all subjects, even better than their peers, some of the traditional subjects, classroom subjects, like mathematics, language arts, social studies, science, etc. So this is really breakthrough stuff in terms of a knowledge assessment. So our approach real quick, and then we're going to get out of that. We have some resources if you want to get into the curriculum itself. I'd be glad to do take you through that, or if you even want to try it yourself, we can set that up. But basically, the IP approach that we take is very short lessons, 3 minutes or so, 3 to 5 minutes, one inquiry topic, a question, if you will, that a student asks, like in this example here, how often should I exercise? And then we lead them with one big idea. What's the main thing we want you to know? What, that you really want to get out of this? And the deal that we make with students ahead of time is, obviously the number one question they have in any subject is, hey, will I use this in the real world? And so we make a deal that says every question we ask is something that we think you're going to use in the real world, and we'll show you how. And so that's a real important way to get relevancy and engagement, not just compliance, but engagement in the knowledge side of physical education. And then every lesson, the student has the opportunity to do formative assessments to test their knowledge and understanding of those concepts. And they can take those assessments as many times as they want, and they're encouraged to master that knowledge before they move on in terms of the grade. So it's very formative rather than punitive.
Gary, I'd like to add one thing real quick with that previous slide is I'm not sure how many people are doing learning-focused schools still. I know that was the big thing when I was teaching 2-3 years ago, but the big idea of each IPE lesson or module would align with the essential questions in the learning-focused school model. And there might be some other jingo that people use, but essentially the curriculum aligns with a lot of what I saw through my professional development when I was teaching. And then the second thing is those formative assessments are collected online. So in the past, previous to using e-learning, a lot of these teachers that I've talked to who use IPE either did not do the formative assessments at all, or the formative assessments that they did do were paper and pencil, and they took away from movement time. So the value of being able to collect assessment data online is twofold, in that it allows you to collect the assessment data so you know what students know, you know where they're at, but also you're preserving that movement time in class. So I just wanted to make sure that was emphasized there.
So Matt, did we go to full screen when I made that change that Becky suggested?
I can still see the slides on the left and
okay,
the official slide on the right, but that works.
Okay, that's fine.
Yep.
So basically, this is kind of the outline of PE1 and PE2, which are curricula for a semester each. And one of the great things you'll see is that the most common word in these units is your. And we may, you know, physical education, physical activity is a very personal journey. It is something that means different things to different people. And that's what we really try to do, is make it less about the subject matter and more about them and the connection they can make with their, you know, their fitness goals or the fitness intensity or their cardio, their nutrition, their body, flexibility, safety, rest, whatever it may be. So one of the things that you'll find in the links under additional resources is the second to last link is course curriculum and overview. So that'll have more detail of all this if you want to download that as a PDF at a later time. You know, you can grab that. So part of what we want to show is, in terms of a different definition, we did minds in motion, is health-related fitness knowledge is also about the joy of movement. You know, it goes way beyond just complying with whatever that activity may be required of them, because obviously people are going to comply to a certain point to get the grade that they hope to have. But we want that to be an evoking of emotion in movement and motion. So one of the crazy things that we've done that technology has allowed us to do is at the end of a semester, we actually ask kids what they think. You know, how did it go? You know, was it too hard, too easy, too fast, too dumb, too boring? You know, whatever you know it may be, and we definitely give them the opportunity to put those words, or put their feelings and their thoughts into their own words here. And you know, what you find is that in making a more relevant, more personal, more engaging, more towards what they're trying to achieve, you get a different level of or a different range of emotions than you had before, in terms of that, you know, just what they know, but also those aha moments in terms of later in life there. So as you know, you've heard it said many, many different ways, but they're not going to remember what they did in class as much as how they felt about that class. And physical education is definitely one of those subjects where that comes through in flying colors.
So Gary and Chad, is this something that you go through daily with your classes then, and then they go and, you know, kind of do the assessment at the, you know, when they get home? Is it self-paced? There's just kind of a few questions, and then I think you were alluding to it, Gary, but what happens if students don't take the survey? Like, what's the approach there?
Okay, Chad, why don't you take the first part of that, and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, so I've spoke to a number of teachers who use this, and I guess kind of the value of it is that you can sort of use it how it works for you. So for example, some of the teachers I've talked to really make an effort to blend the content of IPE into their in-class curriculum. So they would follow with the students as the students move through. They would follow the big idea or the big question, and post that on a whiteboard for students to look at in the locker room. They would ask some of the follow-up questions during an introduction or conclusion of class. And then other teachers allow students to move through the course more autonomously. In cases like that, it would be more of a parallel curriculum where students engage with their kinetic curriculum during class and then move through the course on their own. So theoretically, a student in those instances could move through the course in a couple of days if they were motivated. In the same regard, some students might wait until the end to do it all. But what I've found is the teachers who sort of make an effort to blend the curriculum into their in-class the IPE curriculum into their in-class curriculum, it sounds like students have an easier time. But there's also a progress bar that IPE provides students and teachers, so students can see sort of the recommended place where they should be. Gary calls it in the green. So if students stay in the green, if they make adequate progress, things kind of maintain smooth. If students kind of get into the red, the teacher's notified from their end, and they can offer reminders to the large group or to individual students as well.
Matt, yeah, I'll follow up with that a little bit. Matt, it's a great question, and the whole concept of blended learning in the flipped classroom is that in a traditional subject, in a classroom subject, you do the lecture in the day and you do the homework at night, and or the assignment or the project or whatever it may be. And the great thing about blended learning, it may be the perfect fit for physical education, because no one I've found is getting 60 minutes on a daily basis of moderate to vigorous physical activity for their students. And so the thing you'd never ever want to do is take away a second of precious classroom time for academics that is used instead of physical activity. So the sweet spot of this, the goal is to flip this completely around, so a student can independently do their academic work on their own time, whether it's at home, at the resource center. A lot of them do it on their phones, wherever they may be. But the idea is that then the teacher can take those concepts that are in those lessons and say, hey, the reason we're doing this activity today and we're doing these things, and then it can refortify and affirm what's being done in the classroom, and they go, okay, now I get, I'm not just doing it because you tell me to do it, I'm doing it because it has this benefit, or it's achieving this goal, or it's going to, get me on the path to these movements or motor skills or whatever it may be that you want to accomplish there. So teachers definitely have the opportunity to affirm the curriculum, but they don't have to change their kinetic curriculum whatsoever. So I have all sorts of teachers in all sorts of schools with all sorts of situations everyone can take exactly what they're doing today and basically just make it stronger from an intellectual standpoint. But a lot of them will say, hey, okay, I get it now. Some of the things I'm doing really are not, we may need to reevaluate that in terms of the goals and the outcomes that we're trying to achieve here. So it is an aha moment, not only for the students, but for many of the teachers themselves. But they are reminded, there is a weekly fitness journal that they complete. As Chad mentioned, there's a progress bar. We give pace points. So basically encouragement for them to reach certain milestones at certain times that each teacher can set themselves. So Chad, I'm going to turn it back over to you. Again, we didn't want to spend too much time, the whole blended learning thing. We want to kind of give you that background to what e-learning is and what it can accomplish here, and tell you that it's available and how it's being used. But now we want to kind of get into how it's being used in the research side and where you can come into play to take advantage of that. So I'm going to turn that over to you, Chad.
Okay, sure. I'm gonna turn it over to Chad. Gary, if you want to do if you just want to stop sharing your screen real quick.
There we go.
It does seem to be showing up just black right now. I'm not quite sure why. But then maybe let's go back into sharing your screen one more time, and let's see if we can work through that as Chad is chatting just a little bit here.
Okay.
Yeah, so while they're working on that, I see a couple good questions over here on the Tozzle I can answer, and then we can kind of get into the research side here. But Danielle, the IPE curriculum is used primarily in ninth grade classes. Some schools use it throughout high school. And that's sort of where the curriculum is geared. I think, theoretically, e-learning would work with middle school students. There is sort of an expectation of autonomy. So, it might be difficult to get a second grader to sort of engage with something every night, but, with the right supports, with the right communication, with parents and even classroom teachers, theoretically, I think, this could work across the grade levels, as long as it's geared towards individual learners and their needs, especially as students sort of become more technology proficient. The other thing with a lot of the teachers that I've talked to is as many of you probably know, schools are sort of adopting technology initiatives, and a lot of schools are going to one-to-one devices. A lot of schools are going to bring your own devices. But I did see a question, every student needs a device. There are teachers that use IPE where there is no technology policy in the school, and those teachers have daily PE, so they allot one day a week, half of a class perhaps, to go into the computer lab. So students who don't have a computer can engage with the IPE curriculum. So ideally, every kid would have a device, every student would be able to engage with IPE at home, but there are study halls, most schools have computer labs, and that sort of thing. So and the lessons are short, so it's not like a lot of time is needed to get this done, and to have students engage with it. So that's a really good question. Yeah, and so here's a middle school teacher who thinks it would be a great asset in the classroom. I think that's right. As Gary said, it really fits with the mission that we're trying to promote in PE. We want kids to be active. We want kids to learn skills, to be physically active. But what we're seeing in sort of the research side is that activity levels in PE don't necessarily result in physical activity outside of school. But health-related fitness knowledge there are some associations with personal fitness and physical activity levels. So some of this sort of early evidence is suggesting that in order to be physically active, obviously kids need to have the skills and the fitness to be active, but they also need to know why they're being active. And this kind of thing gives us an opportunity to provide that. So what our research project here is looking at is students who engage in IPE. Are they learning? What are the teachers' experiences using IPE, and what are the students' experiences using IPE? Because this is a new thing, and you all know that kids kind of have their opinions about what physical education is, and so transitioning into e-learning is probably going to be a new thing. But I think with effort from the teacher, trying to promote buy-in, motivating the students that it is a valuable thing, that it will help them be healthy, it's a really smooth process to sort of transition into using e-learning in the PE context. Yeah, so really, it makes sense. That's kind of what we're thinking here. Is it makes sense with the availability of e-learning technologies and sort of the emergence of one-to-one in schools. And I'm even hearing some teachers, and maybe some of you have this in your schools, that professional development days for teachers are now correspondingly e-learning days for students. So a couple of the districts that I've talked to have 6 professional development days for teachers where students don't go to school, but each teacher provides a short e-learning project or e-learning assignment for students to engage with during that time. So this really allows PE to be at the forefront of a lot of those technology initiatives, that schools are sort of adopting now. And we're hearing from the teachers that the data that they have is right near the top. The PE teachers that you're using e-learning are collecting data just like the math teacher, or collecting data just like the reading teacher, and they're able to provide evidence of learning. And so if we extend that, we think about professional professional evaluation. A lot of these new evaluation tools are requiring teachers to provide evidence of learning, to provide artifacts of learning. You know, if you're trying to collect paper and pencil assessments, that can be difficult for 300-400 students. But the way that a lot of these e-learning platforms are set up, it's a couple clicks and you've got an entire graph of student learning to provide during that principal meeting, or to provide during that instructional coach meeting.
Chad, if I can jump in for a moment here, just a couple examples. As you mentioned, teachers are being nudged along to include more e-learning instruction, whether it's during a professional development day here in Indiana, where depending on the winter, we might have snow days where the school buses don't run and the students stay at home. They're asked to have e-learning opportunities in their back pocket. Excuse me, the school districts that use IPE, basically those teachers go, hey, we don't have to wait for a snow day to have e-learning. Every day is an e-learning day. So we don't have to do anything special. We don't have to create anything special. We just basically say, stay current or work ahead with your interactive PE as you see fit. And so then basically, and that's really where the engagement comes in, because a lot of these e-learning assignments that are being done don't necessarily align with the curriculum that's going on in the classroom every day. And so from the student's perspective, they see it as busy work just to say we did e-learning, rather than technology or e-learning being used to facilitate student learning outcomes that were designed from the very beginning. So it's a way to not look at it as a bolt-on, but as basically in the DNA of how education is done. And that is a huge, huge leap. Plus, the big thing teachers say just pragmatically is, you mean I don't have to create any lessons or assignments, I don't have to produce any pages, I don't have to run any pages off, I don't have to hand them out, I don't have to collect them, I don't have to grade them, I don't have to log them in my grade book, it just happens automatically? And the answer is, yep, it does. And by the way, the assessments are to national assessment standards, so you can actually have some integrity to that learning that you say is the measurement of learning that you're hoping to report there.
So these are the research questions that I'm looking at. I think a lot of people sort of shy away from looking into this because they think it's online PE, and it is absolutely not online PE. The most successful examples of e-learning are blended e-learning, where the teacher is reinforcing, is supporting, is promoting the content that's posted online. So we really think that this is kind of a mix of the best in-person teaching with the best online teaching to result in the most learning. So kind of just the first steps that we're taking is, do students learn from this? What impact does blended learning have on students' health-related fitness knowledge? So what we've done is we've added a validated national assessment as the pre and post test based on the national standards. Students will run through the IPE curriculum and will be able to determine the extent of their learning as a result of engaging with that curriculum. And we'll be able to identify the extent to which they're achieving national standards, which I think is a valuable thing. We have all these standards, but we don't know if we're achieving them necessarily. And this is kind of a valuable way to be able to see if what we're teaching is helping students sort of achieve the goals that we have. Obviously, there is a teacher piece to this. So we want to talk about the teacher. We want to learn from the teachers who use IPE, what their experiences are like, And we also want to hear from the students what their experiences are like as well. So Gary and I are sort of offering two possibilities. Anybody who's a licensed PE teacher, doesn't matter what your context is, Gary's going to provide IPE to you. You can jump all in, do the pre and post test, and have the students run through the curriculum. Or if you just want to see what your current curriculum, how effective that is in helping students achieve national standards, we can set you up with an online version of the pre and post assessment, and you can just try that choice out this time.
So right now we have actually, here we are at the end of August. We already have thousands of students in the study, but we want to invite as much geographical diversity as we can. So we do have multiple states involved right now, but we'd like to have even more. And Chad's very interested in making some comparisons around the world. So for our listeners that are from other countries, certainly we're very interested in that as well. So basically, to kind of add a little bit more to this in terms, everyone wants to get to what's the implementation. Basically, if you were to say, I am all in, we could, and it doesn't matter if you've already started school, this is something that can be worked in here, but basically we can get course credentials for each of your students, and they can start. And as we said, make that an independent venture, and they can work at their own pace. And whether that's just the pre and the post assessment, the pre and the post assessment is about a half hour each. And both of those can be done on their own time, and probably should be done on their own time, as all the lessons are there as well. The interesting thing I have found is that most people have been more successful when they keep IPE out of the classroom, where they basically say, hey, this is on you 100%. And basically then they know, and it's a very clear message that they have to take ownership for that. But when when you kind of bring it in, say, hey, are we going to have the opportunity to work on our IPE today? Then it can be confusing on which days you choose and not to do that. Some schools basically might have shorter periods when they have professional development for part of the day and the students come late. And that may be a chance to use it during those 4 or 5 days of the semester, because the periods are much, much shorter, and it wouldn't make as much sense for dressing out. I had something happen on my screen. Are we back in the full screen again, Matt?
Yeah, everything looks good on my side.
Okay, great. So I think these are the points here. I know that Matt has another session coming up here, and we want to leave room for questions here. So, but this is kind of what, what's in it for you. I can tell you right now that every teacher that has ever been a part of this has said, you just made my job a lot, even though I know you're adding something, and intuitively it says that when you add something, it adds more work for me, it adds more complexity. What we have seen in every case is that they go, oh, okay, now you're actually making my job a lot easier here to achieve the objectives that my administration has for me on the use of e-learning technologies, but to become a much more effective teacher, to be able to prove it, to have the sort of information that I need and the sort of artifacts that I need during teacher evaluation time. And this in Indiana, they get bonuses when they can show their effectiveness and demonstrate that. So it does have a monetary value to some who are in that situation where proving it makes a difference in the wallet. So I want to turn it over to questions here, but you've probably, if you've seen the standards or the preamble that Shape America uses in terms of the goal of physical education, is to develop physically literate individuals, and we use physical literacy a lot as a term here, but who have the confidence, skills, and knowledge to, and I have here fill in the blank, a lifetime of healthful physical activity. And of all the words on here, I used to focus on I didn't focus on physical literacy because it sounded like a buzzword and it really didn't have a good meaning to me personally. But I focused on the knowledge, skills, and confidence, and felt like what we were really bringing in to this was the knowledge part, which added to the confidence, which then those two really focus on the skills, where a lot of the kinetic curriculum already focuses on skill development. But in terms of the outcome, not just today, but for a lifetime of healthful physical activity, the most important word that I've come to in my path and my journey in this is really, we talked about this being an intellectual journey, path, if you will, to physical literacy. But I think when you do that, you also bring an emotional part to this that really is, I will call it the keys to the castle, kings to the kingdom, in terms of that lifetime part here. So, one of the things that we do in is every password that a student has fit for life as a root, with other numbers associated with it. But that's one of the things we do is we just drive this message home in everything we do, and even the password, that every time they put in their password to do their work, they're putting in fit for life, just to be very consistent with what the message here is. It's not just to do your schoolwork. It's about about being fit for life here. And really, you think about it, it's kind of going from that emotion when they show up of what do I have to do today, to not just what do I get to do today, but what do I want to do today? And that's that ownership of their own physical health and physical well-being that, is so important here. This is interesting. When I have discussions with teachers and say, hey, what are you trying to achieve? What's the student learning outcome? What is the goal of your physical education program? You get a wide variety of answers here. And I'll say it's to learn to move. It's pretty much that simple. But, one of the things that we find is that, if we look at that life expectancy of 79 years and we kind of divide it up into segments here, those first 5 years that the parents are in charge, unfortunately, are now working against us because the students are, sitting in front of screens, even when they eat, putting an iPad or a tablet there to entertain them. Basically, that is an alternative to physical activity. Basically means that when they show up for school for the first time, there's a little bit of unwiring that has to occur before the, a rewiring can occur during those influential times, the next 13 years that teachers have to influence that outcome there. But the legacy of what you do during those 13 years lasts 70, 3/4 of their life. And, so it's not just about what they do today in that classroom or that year in your gym or whatever it might be. It's what does that allow them to accomplish during the other 3/4 of their life. And if successful with that learning outcome, you get a couple bonus years out of it, in terms of not just the number of years, but I would also say the quality of years during that time. So, when we talk about what are we really trying to achieve here overall with our programs, this is a great way of looking at it, not just in terms of, what happens between August and May, but what's going to happen in the subsequent years when they move into adulthood. So, Chad, I have to throw this over to you because everyone knows these brain scans, and where do they come from? Your school, right?
University of Illinois, Chuck Hillman. Yeah, so we know the value of physical activity. Probably everybody's seen this in one way or another. Brain lights up when we exercise, and so we really want to help students get the benefits of living a healthy life, not just physical benefits, but also emotional, psychological, cognitive, and all of that. So we're trying to really help students reap the holistic benefits of living a physically literate and physically healthy life for life.
So I think at this point, given the time here, and I know that Matt may have to leave a few minutes early for his next session here, but Matt, if we can leave the chat open, we'll stick around here.
Sounds good.
But I think we could probably open it up for Q&A here through the chat here. The number one question everyone asks, is this complicated? And the answer is absolutely. This actually simplifies things in a lot of ways. At least that's been the teacher feedback here. So and I know that's hard until you actually go through it. I can certainly put you in touch with any teacher that's ever run through this, and they'll go, you know what, it was a little scary that first week because I didn't know what was going on. But man, the great thing here is I don't have to know technology to teach technology. So I'm going to put the Q&A up here as well here, but we'll just, rather than go through that, if these answer your questions, great, but let's get to your questions. And make sure that we address that.
Yeah.
Matt, do you have some for us?
Well, what I think I'm going to have to do, there's a few questions, and I think that frequently asked questions kind of answers a few of them. I think they've looked for some resources below, but I am going to have to head out within the next couple of minutes and get my next session started. So I think what we'll have to do is we'll just have to take things over to the Tazzle, and you guys can answer a few questions there, and they'll have a few minutes before they kind of jump out into the next session as well. I think there's a lot of people very interested in what's going on, and especially in the time of education where educator effectiveness and things like that are in the forefront of our teachers. I think it's a very, very solid program, just in the fact that you're bringing in that knowledge along with the physical activity, and that's what we discussed, that balance of education and activity. So you guys got a lot of really, really good thoughts kind of going on there. So a couple of things. One thing is, again, we will be offering a professional development certificate for people that are watching the Phys Ed Summit today, and I know that's important for a lot of people. And that will be found on the Physedagogy website, PHYSEDAGOGY.com, Physedagogy. And you can find that certificate there. Fill that out. You will get a certificate of completion. And then I just posted in the Tazzle as well, as I talked about. There's a Flipgrid video. So if you like what Gary and Chad were talking about and you can see utilizing it in your classroom, you can click on that Flipgrid video, and what you can do is you can add your thoughts on how you'd add it into your classroom or utilize it in your classroom, and everyone can kind of see what everybody else says, which is really cool. But that's in the Tazzle. It's about the third thing on there, so you can scroll down and see that along with the presentation and their contact information and all the additional resources. All that stuff is there. And remember, if you do the Flipgrid video, you've got a chance to kind of win one of the premium Flipgrid subscriptions. So pretty cool stuff. But Gary and Chad, thank you very much again. We'll send it back to you one more time here.
Oh, good. Yeah, I just, on the additional resources, I just want to point out what they are. The first one is a link that kind of gives an overview of the e-learning project itself. And the second one is a document that goes through all those frequently asked questions as well as the overview itself. The third one there that says apply to be a part of the study shows, or basically is say, hey, I'm interested in this, tell me more, how do we get going? And one of the things that was in the frequently asked questions, everyone, I should have hit this, there is no cost, there are no big reports to fill out, there isn't a big overhead on your part at all. To be a part of that study, whether you want to be as kind of the baseline or the all-in part of that. But those documents there will show everything. The last link on there is a copy of the slides that you saw today here. But our contact information's there. I know you probably want to go to the other sessions, but we'll hang around for a while and try and answer as many as we can. So cool. Matt, thanks a lot. Thanks for and everything you guys do. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we couldn't do it without you guys, so thank you. All right, everybody take care, and signing off for now, and stay in that Tazzle if you'd like to ask some questions or have them answered, and we'll be seeing everybody real soon. Take care.